Hi, everybody. I'm Leslie Carr, and I'm here with my friend Erin Stutland. Erin is a fitness and lifestyle instructor and the founder of ShrinkSessionWorkout.com. Shrink Session is a really amazing workout video series that you can download right on your computer and do in the comfort of your own home. And I'm a huge fan of Erin and everything that she's doing in the world. So thank you so much, Erin, for being here with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So just before we launch into this, one thing I really want to share with everybody is why I'm so excited to have you here today. I think for people who are familiar with my materials, you may know that I recently released an ebook called When Change Takes Time. And the material in that book, just in a nutshell, has to do with what's happening when we hit speed bumps on our path to personal growth. When we're feeling frustrated, we feel like we're not making change as quickly as we want to make it. Psychologically, what's happening and how can we move past those obstacles? So, Erin, one of the things that I've been really surprised by since I released the ebook a couple weeks ago is how many people have given me the feedback that the area they're struggling in the most is the area of physical fitness, weight loss, feeling good in their bodies, and that kind of stuff. And I'm wondering, I guess my first question for you, since you've been swimming in these waters for so long, and I think a lot of people probably don't realize this, but you also are a coach. You've been working as a coach for a long time. So you're really familiar with this terrain. I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to why people find this specific area to be so challenging for themselves.
Yeah, I think it can be very, multi-layered, many reasons why. But I think, a big reason that I notice is that people who, perhaps they've gone a long time without moving their bodies, or they've sort of avoided exercise for a certain amount of time. And they could avoid it for a couple of different reasons. A lot of times I find that women, if they've struggled in the past growing up, maybe they weren't athletic growing up or they got made fun of because of how they moved their bodies. So first of all, there's this block around thinking like, I'm not an athlete, I'm not physical, like I'm not fit. So there's that sort of internal dialogue going on. And then, if there was any kind of abuse, sexual, any of kind of that kind of abuse, then there's also this sense of, there's like this feeling that people don't want to be in their bodies because it's
Yeah.
scary and it's uncomfortable. And if there was any time that their body was made fun of or taken advantage of, there's like, I don't even want to know what's going on. I don't even want to feel it. And when you're exercising and you're moving, you are going to feel your body. You are
Yes.
sending oxygen to your cells and through your blood, and you're going to feel your body. And I think what happens a lot of times is that if you haven't exercised in a long time, it feels pretty intense. That first time that you're back and you're moving your body, it's pretty intense, and some people would say it's actually uncomfortable. Your heart is beating, maybe your legs are shaking, and I think a lot of times when that happens, a lot of people who have that sort of internal script happening, they feel that feeling in their body, and they instantly go up into their mind, and they're like, "Oh, see, I suck at this. I'm not good at this. This is so hard, or this is boring, or why do I have to do this? Why do I have to be a person who needs to exercise?" And it becomes this whole internal dialogue when really, if you can just stay with your body and stay with the feeling in your body and be like, oh my God, wow, this is intense. My heart is beating. My legs are shaking. That can kind of help. So I think that's a big, that is a big reason, I think, why it's very hard to get people past that hump. And the one thing that I want to say real quickly is that if you can get past that hump, to get to the place where you actually sort of enjoy a little bit more, you enjoy moving, it's not a big leap. You don't have to be a marathon runner to get into the groove. You have to get over that little hump so that you're a little more fit than where you are today. And then you'll find that it gets a little bit easier.
Absolutely. It gets easier and easier with time, right? It sort of builds
Yeah.
upon itself. Yeah. One of the things that I really hear you saying, and I was thinking about this actually before we started the interview today, I was thinking about how a lot of times when people are working out, it seems like they're really accessing that negative internal dialogue, right? I'm weak, I'm not good enough. All of these really historical things come up that might not necessarily be part of our present reality, but it's all of this historical stuff that comes up.
Definitely. And then, if you go to a class at a gym and you're looking in the mirror and you don't like what you see, I mean, the first thing that you go to is like, ugh, my thighs, or ugh, and you're comparing yourself to the other people in the class. And I mean, it's actually really part of what the power of shrink session is. And we
That's
can
what I was
talk
about to
about that
say. Exactly.
a little bit, or we can launch into that now. But is using mantras. So basically, for those of you listening, shrink session combines yoga and some dance and some kickboxing. But the thing that makes it really unique is that you're actually using mantras, or positive affirmations that you're saying out loud while you're moving, which I know sounds like super weird and a little bit crazy, and it is it, but it's the idea of it. The mantras are designed to help you get into the present moment, so that there's no space for that other script. So if you're saying, I am powerful, I am strong, I know that I can do it if I put my mind to it, and you're actually physicalizing those words, and it's like getting in your body, there's no space for, my thighs are fat, this is boring, I suck at this. And so there's great power if you can actually, if you can just get your mind to focus on the one thought, but then two, if you can actually embody that as a feeling, as an emotion, you start to give your cells a very new message about what it's like to move. And that's where really I think the great power is.
Exactly. I agree with you. I really agree with you. I think that to me is what's so powerful about what you do, because it's almost as if in this space, there's no middle ground, although here I mean that in a good way, right? You're actually taking these negative self-defeating thoughts and turning them into something that's more empowering and more positive. It's really hard to be thinking negative thoughts when you're exercising and thinking and saying out loud, I feel good. You're saying things that
Yeah.
are enforcing the positive. So I absolutely agree that that's a big part of why that's so powerful.
Yeah, and it's actually, I mean, just so that people know, like, it's actually not possible to think them both at the same time. I mean, only one thing can occupy the space at one time. Like, no two things can occupy the same space at any given time. So just to sort of like really start to understand what your mind is doing, you are either thinking, I suck at this, or you're thinking, I'm awesome. And sometimes we bounce back and forth between the two,
Yes.
but never do they exist at the same time. So part of the power of the workout is that you're training yourself to stay in that positive groove longer, on a more
Right.
regular basis.
Right. I really love it. I really love it. So if somebody were to say to you, and I would imagine you do get this question sometimes, I'm having a hard time motivating myself to even try this. Let's say somebody were to ask you the question, I'm scared. I'm having a hard time kind of jumping into the groove of this. What would you say to somebody who had that question?
I think that I would highly recommend that you start really small. Like, be super sweet to yourself, be super gentle, be super kind. Maybe it's starting with a walk, maybe it's starting with 5 minutes. I'm doing right now. We're doing the Say It, Sweat It, Get It challenge, and it's a week-long challenge. And basically, what I'm doing is I'm giving everybody a 5-minute workout video to do every day. 5 minutes, that's it.
Yeah.
And I know that that's even going to be challenging for people to step away from what they're doing and give themselves that gift of that 5 minutes. But I think there's so much power that can really happen in 5 minutes. Like, this is not about climbing the whole hill in one day. This is about taking one little step forward. Maybe it's that you go to the gym for 15 minutes, or, like I said, a walk. But I would absolutely recommend that you start really small.
Yeah, I really like that about your materials as well, because I think that for so many people, they have this binary mental setup from the get-go, right? It's sort of everything or nothing. And I
Hmm.
think that, really anything is better than nothing. And if you can even just kind of start small, it's a huge step in the right direction, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Start small, and create some accountability around it. That's a really huge thing, whether it's working out with someone or getting sort of some social accountability. I mean, it's really honestly the reason I struggle with the same thing. Like, I'm busy, I'm running my business. It's sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I haven't gotten a workout in myself. So that's why I like classes, because I'm around other people and around other energy, and it gets me going. Or I'll call a girlfriend and say, let's meet for a yoga class. So I think creating a little bit of accountability is really powerful as well.
That's a really good one too. Yeah, I didn't even think about that for you. I guess I tend to think that because working out is your life, it's probably easier for you to fit it in than somebody else, but I guess that's not always the case, huh?
No, it's not. It's really not. I mean, for anyone who runs a business or has children, or I mean, I don't have children, but my business is sort of my. I mean, it could be a 24-hour affair with
Exactly.
my business. Yeah. So I even also I struggle with that too, of carving out the time.
Yeah. That's really good to know. I have a private Facebook group for the book, and when I knew we were going to do this interview today, I asked the group, for the people that are particularly struggling in this area, was there any question that anybody had for you in particular? And the one thing that there seemed to be some consensus around was people were wondering, what are some of the struggles that you've had along the way? I mean, I think that, and I feel this way about you. You're the kind of woman that absolutely seems like she's totally got all of her stuff together, right? You're fit, you're gorgeous, you run your own business, you've got all of this great stuff going on. And I think it probably is easy for a lot of people to feel like you've never faced a challenge. And I'm
Right.
wondering if you can maybe help people to understand some of the struggles that you've had along the way of either getting to the point that you're at in your business or in your kind of physical and health routine. What kinds of challenges have you faced along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up as a dancer, and so that was a very big part of my life. And in my teenage years, I really, as my body developed and I started becoming a woman, I began to struggle a lot with eating disorders and disordered eating. And I really, I got it in my head that my body wasn't the way it should be if
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to do with my life. And I became really, really hard on myself. And so much so that, I was restricting my diet, restricting calories to the minimal amount that I could possibly have. And, the problem with that is when you're not eating, you're very hungry and you're also very sad. And when you're not nourishing your body, there's nothing to really ground you. And so I struggled between having extreme anxiety because there's nothing in your body to literally keep you grounded. And then I would be so hungry that I would binge, and then I would feel this despair and the shame, and then I would go through depression. So it was like this cocktail of anxiety and depression for a very long time throughout my teenage years and even through my 20s. And I didn't really know what was wrong with me, and I didn't know. I really always attributed to, oh, it's because I'm fat and I don't like my body. And I couldn't understand what was happening with the depression and why it was happening and how to fix it. And when I was 19, my mom was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and that really just sent me over. It sent me over the edge. It was so sad. It was so hard to see. But what was amazing about it was, she did all the things that her Western doctors had suggested, and she did chemotherapy, but she also started doing meditation and Tai Chi and really created this whole beautiful lifestyle for herself. And this, by the way, is before nowadays that's what people do, but this was like
Yeah.
in the 90s before people were really doing that. And we were from the Midwest, so it wasn't like meditation and Tai Chi was a little bit weird.
Yeah.
But she incorporated these things, and she was kind and gentle to herself and loving and sweet. And it was amazing. She went into remission, and she's doing well today, which is incredible because ovarian cancer is a real tough one. And the thing that I learned was that, I watched her heal. I watched her go through this transformation, and she approached everything, her body and everything, through a place of love and kindness and compassion. And at the same time, I'm struggling with being hard on myself. And I really believed that the harder I was on myself, the more I would get my body to do what I wanted it to do,
Right.
which was like all wrong. It was the opposite. And I realized at that point, like, I'm going about this in the wrong way. Now what do I do about it? Now how do I change? Because this is like a habit that I have now that I've created for myself, a way of thinking about myself, a way of talking to myself that I realized wasn't loving, it wasn't kind, it wasn't compassionate. And that's really when I started studying, spirituality and really diving into that part of my life, and working with mantras and affirmations. And so it was a long journey of a long struggle. And I would say that really, it lasted through my 20s. It took me a long time to really make some big changes. So it wasn't easy.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us today and for being so candid about that. There are two things in particular that you've been saying that I really want to draw people's attention to. One is that it didn't happen overnight, and that things have taken time for you. It's been a process, and it's something that I think that that's something that people need to hear more of in general. But I also really appreciate what you're saying about the kindness of your approach, because that's one of the reasons why I really like Shrink Session, and I am such a big fan of what you're doing in the world, and the reason why I wanted to share it with the people that are paying attention to what I'm putting out there, because I think that people really do need a kinder and more compassionate approach, and I really appreciate what you're bringing to the world in that way. So I hope that people really, for the people that are listening to this, I hope they're really hearing what you're saying in terms of the path that you've been on, and the transition that you had to make around going from being really hard on yourself and feeling like you could sort of force things into submission versus just inviting yourself to change. I mean, that's sort of what I hear in the distinction.
Hmm.
But
Definitely. And one thing that I also just want to say is, a lot of times we say like compassion and kindness, and so then it can kind of in terms of with your body, right? It can turn into this like, oh, I'm just gonna like really lay back and like not do anything. But kindness and compassion, actually, sometimes the kindest thing that you can do for yourself is get up and shake your booty. You know what I mean? Like that could be the nicest,
totally.
amazing thing that you can do for yourself. Jump up and down and like shout, and you know what I mean? Like really move the energy in your body. Sometimes that's like the most compassionate thing you can do. So I don't want to mistake kindness and compassion for just
For inaction.
yeah, I'll just like lay back and not do it. Sometimes that's the action, to do nothing. Absolutely. Go get a massage, chill out, like
Mm-hmm.
100%. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the most kind thing you can do is to really move.
Absolutely, absolutely. And sometimes the kindest thing that we can do for ourselves is to do what actually is healthy and nurturing. And a lot of times that's physical activity. It's nurturing ourselves through exercise and that kind of stuff. So thank you
Absolutely.
so much for all of that. So I want to give you a moment here to just tell people how they can take action on what they've learned and heard about today.
Yeah, well, please come on over and visit shrinksessionworkout.com. And we've got lots of free stuff. Right now we've got a challenge that we're running. So if you get there in time, you can still be a part of the challenge where I'm giving you these little 5-minute videos. If the challenge is closed by the time you get there, just still come to shrinksessionworkout.com. We give when you sign up, we give you a free workout so you can try it. And that's the best. And then of course find me, on the social medias and shoot me an email if you have any questions. I respond to every single email. And but come over and check out Shrink Session Workout. I think you'll like it. It's a very different approach to exercise, and we've got these mantras, and we're moving your body, and we can help you do it in a pretty short amount of time.
Absolutely. And all of that material will be printed as well below this screen and at the end of the video. So people will have it there as well. But thank you so
Well,
much for taking the time to be with us today.
welcome. It's so good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Erin. See you soon.